Google Stadia is looking to win over gamers again, but is it too little too late? Nintendo reveals that a ton of accounts were hacked for Nintendo Switch owners, so let's talk about what you can do to prevent this. WWE 2K21 is officially canceled, and I talk about what game I want to see in its place, and finally, is a new Street Fighter game coming to the Nintendo Switch? What's going on, guys? I'm RGT85. If this is your first time on the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button, but without any further ado, let's talk about what's going on in the world of video games. So it's been an interesting ride for Google Stadia, and when I say interesting, I probably mean more along the lines of a disappointing ride for it. There were a lot of people that were excited for this, even some friends of mine. I know Jason from the Hey Jay channel and Wood from Beat 'em Ups were looking forward to Google Stadia. They thought this could be something cool, and I was always of the mindset of, well, I just don't know about this. I don't really see the point of it right now in the year 2019 when it came out. And of course, since Google Stadia has come out, it's been a very rocky road to say the least. Some people were having issues with things like streaming the games, which is sort of the whole point of the Google Stadia program. Of course, there's the fact that Google promised so many different things coming to Google Stadia, such as the ability to watch YouTubers play a game and then simply click a button on their YouTube stream and be able to play the game with them. And of course, these features never came. Google Stadia is still very bare bones when it comes to features that were originally promised in the initial Google Stadia presentation that still have not come to be. But it looks like Google isn't quite giving up quite yet when it comes to Google Stadia, because they are doing a Stadia Connect on April 28th, which is this upcoming Tuesday. And according to Google, we're going to hear from the Google Stadia team and see a few new games coming to Stadia. Now that's all well and good. I guess you should, try to promote your product and try to be excited about your product. But the question I have is, with the few new games coming to Google Stadia, are we talking about third-party games that are already available on other systems, or are we talking finally about exclusive games coming to Google Stadia? Because I think that's the biggest problem with Google Stadia, is the lack of exclusive games. When you just have a bunch of third-party games that are pretty much available on all of the platforms that are out there, the PS4, the Xbox One, and the Nintendo Switch, what's the added benefit of buying it via Google Stadia? Because of course you have to buy these games at full price. Many of these games are cheaper on the other platforms as well, and of course you actually own these games. Whereas with Google Stadia, if the service were to go away, you would pretty much lose all your games and of course get no reimbursement. It's definitely been not a very solid launch for Google Stadia, and I always say that the reason why people gravitate towards a certain platform or a certain service are because of these exclusive games. Now, because on paper, Google Stadia doesn't sound all that bad, but of course there's so many promises that have not been met yet. Of course, the ability to play this Google Stadia service on any device you have isn't really in function. Of course, all of the missing sort of community features for Google Stadia that still haven't been implemented. It's definitely been a very curious situation for Google Stadia. I think it's a little bit too little too late. I think people have moved on from Google Stadia because there's no real incentive to sort of pick up and try out the service. But let me know in the comment section down below if you are enjoying Google Stadia. I know there are people out there that enjoy Google Stadia. There's like Google Stadia podcasts and stuff like that, and I wonder, what do you talk about? Like, there's not much going on in the world of Stadia stuff, but now at least they'll have something to talk about. I of course will do a video on the 28th talking about the Google Stadia presentation and what I thought about it. But let me know what you think of the Google Stadia service in the comment section down below. Do you think that they can resurrect this service, or is it just too little too late? Speaking of services, the Nintendo Switch Online service via the Nintendo Network ID service has been hacked. Over 160,000 accounts were affected by hacking attempts. And this is actually something that has been going on for a little while now. It's kind of interesting that Nintendo is just now talking about this, because I know two people personally, Mad Little Pixel and OJ from Player Essence, who both have had issues with their Nintendo Network ID being hacked and unverified purchases being used with their Nintendo Switch account. Basically, things like V-Bucks and Fortnite related stuff were purchased with their accounts without their permission. And now Nintendo is saying, well, there's been about 160,000 different accounts that have been impacted by attempts of hacking. Of course, now a lot of people aren't involved in this. Obviously 160,000 is a pretty small portion when you compare it to the amount of people that have a Nintendo Switch ID account. But really, it's something that you need to be worried about, because if people are using your account and, buying things with your account that you don't have any interest in, well, you're just going to kind of be screwed unless Nintendo refunds you. Now, of course, there are ways to circumvent this. Nintendo is recommending that everyone enables a two-factor authentication with their Nintendo Switch Online accounts and their Nintendo Network ID accounts, so that way you have to have some more verification than just signing in with a password. Now, as far as what has been impacted in this data breach, nothing too crazy. It's just things like nicknames, date of birth, countries, and email addresses. But one of the things that a lot of people were able to do with this hack was actually access PayPal information and make these purchases via PayPal. I actually went ahead and disabled my PayPal on the Nintendo Switch as an automatic thing. I had it set up to where I would just put in my PayPal password and then I would have access to buy whatever I wanted on the Nintendo Switch eShop. But I went ahead and removed that. And actually another step you can do with PayPal is if you can set it up on your mobile phone to whenever a PayPal transaction occurs, you get a notification on your phone as well. So that is just sort of another step to sort of prevent, people from buying stuff illegally with your account. But definitely a very interesting situation. Obviously, Nintendo is going to have to look into this, see why this is happening, and see what they can do to sort of alleviate this issue. But let me know in the comments section down below if you were impacted by this small hack that happened with about 160,000 Nintendo Switch Online accounts, and sort of what things happened with you. A week ago on the channel, we talked about the rumor that WWE 2K21 was going to be canceled. And a lot of people said, no, it's not going to be canceled. You're wrong. But I definitely felt strong enough to talk about this situation because I thought there was enough information out there to where I didn't think WWE 2K21 was going to happen. Well, 2K has come out and said that WWE 2K21 is canceled, so I was right. I do get things right on this channel from time to time. So now that WWE 2K21 has been officially canceled, 2K did say that there will be a game to replace it, which once again is something we talked about in last week's video. Now, as far as what this game is going to be, supposedly 2K will be making some announcements about the game on April 27th, which is tomorrow, depending on when you're watching this video. But I actually have a suggestion for 2K, and I think this is going to go in a different direction. There's a game that I think it's going to be, but there's a game that I want it to be. And the game that I want it to be is a new Legends of WrestleMania game. Now, Legends of WrestleMania came out on the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3. I've actually been playing through the game recently on the PlayStation 3, and you know what? I really like this game. One thing I really like about this game is how the controls are simplified. Now, you would think with the wrestling game, I would want the most complex controls, and most of the time I do. But when you're playing with these 80s wrestlers, from a different time frame, when wrestling was a whole different thing, I think this simplified control scheme actually works well because the matches play out more so in a style of an 80s or an early 90s wrestling match, more so than in a modern match. So I think Legends of WrestleMania is a really fun game and something that they could expand upon with the Legends of WrestleMania 2. Now, obviously, one of the things I would like them to do with this is to just sort of extend it to a Legends of Wrestling thing. Now, obviously, Showdown Legends of Wrestling came out on the original Xbox and the PS2, so they would probably keep the Legends of WrestleMania tag, but I would think you could, venture into things like the Royal Rumble and Survivor Series and other popular pay-per-views that happened in the 80s and 90s and sort of expand upon this. One of the coolest things was the relive moments, where you actually had to do certain moments from matches, like in WrestleMania 2 where Hogan fought King Kong Bundy, and he had to bust up Bundy on the cage and make him bleed like it happened in the real match. So I would love to see sort of an expansion upon that, do more 80s and 90s wrestlers. You could throw in some modern wrestlers as well because you gotta have Roman Reigns, but obviously I think this is a series that they could definitely expand upon and it would definitely be very fun. Now, as far as what I think they're actually going to do, I think it's going to be another WWE All-Stars game. They released a WWE All-Stars game last generation. It came out on pretty much everything. I think I actually have it on the 3DS. A very arcadey style game, and it's almost like too arcadey, like people are flying up to the rafters to do moves and stuff like that. It wasn't a game I really enjoyed all that much, but I definitely think that is the game that is going to happen. But I would definitely prefer to see a new Legends of WrestleMania game. All I know is hopefully we'll get some information on it tomorrow, and I mean, we're going to talk about it. And finally, I might not be the best Street Fighter player in the world, but I do enjoy playing Street Fighter, and with extension of that, I enjoy Capcom games. Now, of course, Capcom and the Nintendo Switch have had a very rocky relationship. Some of the games have been heavily overpriced, but as of late, Capcom's been doing pretty decent, I feel. The things like with Devil May Cry 3 on the Nintendo Switch, with the added features that really implemented a new sort of way to play the game and really improve the gameplay, I feel, it seems like Capcom is taking the Nintendo Switch a bit more seriously. But one franchise franchise that has been a bit quiet on the Nintendo Switch is, of course, the Street Fighter franchise. Now, we had Ultra Street Fighter 2, the Final Challengers, which came out very early in the Nintendo Switch's life cycle. A lot of people felt, well, this is a $40 game, it's overpriced, but I liked it. You had the way of the Hado mode, which was a weird first-person perspective where you could throw Hadokens and stuff like that. You know, it was fun for a little while. Then, of course, we had Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection, but beyond that, we haven't had any Street Fighter games come to the Nintendo Switch. But it seems like that might be changing. In a recent interview with Yoshiniro Ono, who is the Street Fighter producer that happened with US Gamer, he had to say the following about the Nintendo Switch and Street Fighter in general. Since the Switch came out, we've released Ultra Street Fighter 2 and Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection from the platform. From a business perspective, these two titles were a success. We're seeing many competitive titles, including Smash Bros, do well on the Nintendo Switch, and players are enjoying those types of experiences on the platform. If there's another opportunity that makes sense for us, we would consider the Switch again. Regarding Street Fighter V, it is currently exclusive to the PS4 and PC. However, as mentioned, we do see the Switch as an important platform for all types of games. So Street Fighter V probably won't come to the Nintendo Switch, but I think there is a Street Fighter game that should be on the Nintendo Switch. Yes, it's an older Street Fighter game, but you know what? It is a fantastic Street Fighter game, and that is, of course, Street Fighter 4. I would like to see Ultra Street Fighter 4 be the game that comes to the Nintendo Switch, because we've actually seen Street Fighter 4 on a Nintendo platform before. Super Street Fighter 4 3D came out on the Nintendo 3DS. It was an early launch title for the system, and it was a really good version of Street Fighter, I thought. Yeah, it had the weird touch controls on the bottom of the screen where people could just spam sonic booms and never lose his guile when he played online, but you could turn that off and play with just people using actual button implementations. But I think Street Fighter 4 is a game that makes perfect sense to come to the Nintendo Switch. And yeah, it's an older game, but still, you're gonna have a whole new audience of people that would be playing this game on the Nintendo Switch. And all because it's necessarily an older game doesn't mean that it's a bad game. I think you could add in, you know, a new mode or two like you did with Super Street Fighter 4 3D on the Nintendo Switch. You had that weird sort of 3D mode. Of course, Ultra Street Fighter 2 had the way of the Hado mode that we talked about earlier. So you could sort of add something into it a little bit extra for Nintendo Switch owners that would want to pick up this game again and give them a little bit more incentive. I definitely think that the Street Fighter franchise needs to be more prominent on the Nintendo Switch. Capcom games in general should be more prominent on the Nintendo Switch. Capcom is pretty much throwing everything from their back catalog of games that have been HD remastered to come onto the Nintendo Switch. So now it's time to talk about Street Fighter again. I definitely think that Street Fighter 4 is a perfect candidate. You should do Ultra Street Fighter 4, throw in a new mode, and put it on the Nintendo Switch. And you know what? I bet it would sell very, very well. So what Street Fighter game would you like to see come to the Nintendo Switch? Do you think Capcom could potentially do something brand new in the franchise, like we saw Tatsunoko versus Capcom on the Nintendo Wii? Let me know in the comments down below. Alright, and that is going to do it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to let me know your thoughts about everything in the comment section down below. And as always, thank you guys for checking out this video. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Be sure to check out other videos on the channel. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later.